Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Streamed and Screened, an entertainment podcast about movies and TV from Lee Enterprises. I'm Terry Lipschutz, managing editor of the National Newsroom at Lee, and co-host of the program with Bruce Miller, editor of the Sioux City Journal and a longtime entertainment reporter. And there's a lot of action going on. I mean, it's, we're getting into the summer, the action's outside. I just feel like I need to do something. I need to save somebody, blow something up.
This was the time of year when we would get all of those films where the world is being destroyed and somebody came and rescued it, where the airplane was going down and somebody was going to stop it from, crashing. All those things were big summer films. And really this year we don't have a lot of them. We've got Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and that will obviously take that space. But they've added a new category to the Academy Awards for Best Stunt Performance. And you would think with that would jumpstart, more of these kinds of films. But I'm at a loss. Can you think of ones that we've had lately that fill the bill? I mean, other than the Marvel films and those kinds of things.
It's been light. I mean, yeah, the Mission Impossible ones were several years out from the last Bond movie. We had Gladiator 2, in the last year. That was, I guess, a big action film. But yeah, it's really been kind of a void.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. If we see too many of them on TV or if they've run their course, I don't know. But Will Smith is trying, and you have Bad Boys coming back, and we can always count on The Rock. He's out doing something. But where is the new Bruce Willis? I think that's what we look for most of all. Who is the new Bruce Willis? And will he make an impression on people on a big scale?
Yeah, those Bruce Willis movies were just not just Die Hard, but he was in a lot of other ones too. Wasn't he in one football movie that was kind of an action?
Yeah.
He was in so many. But there's I think back to not my childhood as much, but more of kind of my high school through college years seemed to be kind of this high point of action movies. And even into my 20s, I mean, you think about Speed, right?
Right.
With Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. Such a good action movie. Point Break. Well, again, that's Keanu Reeves, right? But the surfing movie, and they redid that one a few years ago, but it wasn't as good. You lose Patrick Swayze, right? Roadhouse. There's a good action movie. Roadhouse. Who doesn't love that?
Keanu is kind of our transition into a different world because he's doing all those John Wick films. Yeah, Liam Neeson is another one. They show how to age out of it, if you will, and what you can look forward to. But I don't see the young ones coming up. In fact, I got to see a film that opens this week called Fight or Flight, and it stars Josh Hartnett. Now, Josh Hartnett, I don't see him as an action star, but that's what he is in this film. He plays a mercenary kind of, guy that will do whatever, and he's hired by the CIA to find a ghost aboard a plane that's going from Bangkok to San Francisco. And in that flight, there are a bunch of assassins who want to kill him. So in addition to trying to figure out which one of these people am I trying to save, he's got to try and fend off these other ones. And can I tell you, it's a powerhouse. He takes a wine glass and shoves it into somebody's eye. He takes the armrest that you use, to lean on and cracks somebody's arm. I mean, he uses all the stuff that you see in a plane and you think, oh, I'm going to remember this. I am going to try and use these things if I need to, if somebody gets a little testy with me. He is a good choice, although he looks like he's trying to be Brad Pitt. He's got blonde hair in this, and there's a little Magnum PI in the film.
Okay.
And am I ready for it? I don't know. I did get the chance to talk to Katee Sackhoff. She's the brains on the ground who tells him what she wants him to do. Well, she's in kind of a control center. And the director of the film, James Madigan. And this was one of those films that, everybody talked about, but nobody produced. and they got the money. It's low budget, and they were able to produce Fight or Flight. So here's a quick little interview with Katee Sackhoff and James Madigan. Sure, I'm Bruce Miller from the Sioux City Journal. I'm curious, are you guys eager to go on flights now, or do you just hold back and say, oh no, I don't want to ever do that again? What's the deal?
Well, I definitely, am flying out of JFK instead of EWR in the next couple of days. So I saw that, took it seriously, and went, I will fly out of JFK today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's funny. You've never look at a plane the same way after you've spent years working on a project that involves situations like this on a plane. Every time, like while we were prepping or while I was developing, and certainly now, I would just look at every single detail and I'm like, oh yeah, I know how that works. I know how that works. But it's yeah, no, I don't mind flying. It's I love it. I look at it all in a different way.
Are you more willing to go on a flight than you were before because you know what to do if somebody starts acting up?
Yeah.
I don't know if I know what to do, but I mean, I'd pretend.
Yeah, part of the training was this is how you decapitate someone if they act up on a plane.
I'm ready with the armrest in a minute. I think I could use it really well.
Yeah.
You know,
There's a lot to do with a spoon.
how difficult was it to shoot in that kind of confined space?
Yeah, it had its challenges. I think that the with the crew that I had, with the cast that I had, I think under other circumstances, you could wind up with people that are like, oh, how are we going to do this? But absolutely everybody involved, and especially the cast, were just like, we're going to figure this out, and like the stunt team and the riggers and the camera guys, it was all like they would see every challenge as something they were excited about, and so we would come to them and say, this is kind of what we're after. And it's like, let me start working on that. And a lot of times, whether or not we had time for it, they would just sort of do it on their own. And that's what really made the movie. And the fact that whatever the situation was, the actors are like, I am there. I'm fully committed. And when you have those two things come together, it just that's how you wind up with a movie like we have now.
Was there any stunt you couldn't do?
There was a flying dog in the original script that I really tried to keep, and it would have meant the entire shoot. We had a dog and dog handlers and all sorts of things that would go along with that. That was just like, this will kill us, but there was a 0G bit with like a dog coming at us that I was just like, I want to see that.
I want to see that.
It's for the sequel. You can do it in the sequel. That's how you handle it.
I very reluctantly let that go, but yeah, that's one that comes to mind for sure.
Hattie, did you get to meet anybody else from the movie or not? Were you like all sequestered?
I definitely felt like I was sequestered on an island, but no, I definitely got to meet everyone. And Josh and I were shooting our scenes sort of concurrently. So we were hearing what the other person was doing and making changes to dialogue and tone and things like that the entire time. So it was definitely collaborative for sure.
So how difficult is it to do a scene to a screen, to do a scene where you're just talking in the air, you're supposedly on the phone? What is that like?
It's an interesting challenge to try to make something seem comfortable, because we do it every single day. We do it a million times a day and we don't think about it, right? But the moment you get on camera, you try to make sure that your character is seeming spontaneous, and because phone calls are, and is just keeping that pace of the entire film.
Did you create a backstory for her?
Of course I did. I know everything about Catherine.
Okay, then explain to me, what was up with her hair? What was that hairdo?
It's just no nonsense. She doesn't want her hair in her face while she's working. She may have to kill someone.
True, that would be the way to explain it, right?
Yeah.
James, why was Josh the one to do this?
Josh is at the end of the day, what we wanted to make sure that we had someone that was going to inhabit the non-action parts of this. There was a character that we wanted that was not going to go down like the usual kind of action route. And
from the very beginning, it was always Josh. I mean, as soon as we knew that he might be interested in, that was just a dream for me, because it was the character that we had. You know, there's a long list of action names that people usually throw out, but to get someone that is such a great actor, is so performance driven, character driven, who then says, I'm going to do the work, and did, it was just a dream come true. And there was a certain, I didn't want it to be like a cliche of a lot of other action characters that we've seen. And he was very much of the same mind. So it was just perfect. I mean, I can't imagine anyone else in the role.
How big was that plane? I mean, the set that you used as a plane.
It was pretty big. It was divided up into a few different pieces, but all in one continuous go. We had the business class, which is where Josh originally sits, into a galley, into economy, and then into another galley. We were able to, and then that galley is when we're underneath and they come down through. That goes into another set, which was in another stage, and first class was in another stage. That one piece was continuous, so we could sort of shoot back and forth, and we could be able to sort of be shooting and look through the two doors and have all that work. So that was pretty helpful. I mean, it's a plane. It's real stuff from a plane. It wasn't like a set. Like, we couldn't like wild a wall out. It was like a chunk of a plane just got plunked down.
Was continuity a real concern?
Yes. Yes, because we would have, like, you know, it's sort of like, oh yeah, it's an easy action movie, it's contained. It's like, well, there's 100 extras in every shot. You know, there's always all these other people. So we would get like, okay, these are the people that sit in upstairs economy. These are the people that sit in downstairs economy. And then like they wouldn't always come back. So we'd be like grabbing the costume person and like, sit over there in that empty seat, you know? So it was, you know, if you're really paying attention, it more or less tracks the different times we're in places. The same people are there, but you know, not always.
Katee, did you miss being part of all that kind of action? Because you're an action person. You'd like that, wouldn't you?
Of course, I have action envy. I always do. But I was so just excited to play Catherine that I really didn't think about it until we were done and I saw a cut. And then I started, I think, texting James about sequels and if Catherine could do some action next.
Fingers crossed it's going to happen.
I mean, I'm projecting it at this point. I basically forced everyone to hire me, so we'll see.
You know, and the trick is they always have those carts in the middle of the aisles. If you had more carts in the aisles, they couldn't produce half of this stuff. So just know, next time, get those carts out.
True. Very true.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce, for that interview. You know that Katee Sackhoff, she's been in some action stuff before. And actually her big role now is in the last few years has been tied to the Star Wars universe. She was doing for a while. She did the voice of Bo-Katan, one of the Mandalorian fighters, and actually came out from, you know, into the big screen too, and played the role in herself in the Mandalorian. So she's kind of bridged that, and she's continuing it, and will presumably be in. I would think maybe some of these upcoming movies, even in Star Wars, just because of that role. But you know, so she's been in some action stuff, but it doesn't feel like an action. But here we are. This is kind of the best of the action, other than Mission Impossible. Well, you know, we do have that F1 auto. Like, if you want to get into, I mean, there's something too where you've got like Days of Thunder. Those are sort of action movies. But it's not the same. It's not the same as, like, man, you know, you think back to all those roles that Sylvester Stallone had. Some of those classics like Rambo. Right?
Yeah.
You know, the one where he was in prison. I can't remember what was that one that he was trying to they filmed it at a New Jersey prison years ago.
Did you go visit?
No, but it was right next to the DMV where I got my my driver's license in New Jersey. But yeah, I mean, there's some classics like The Rock with Sean Connery, right? just a class. Even you delve into politics, right? Mr. President, Saving the Day, Air Force One. Harrison Ford. That's another guy that's just like king of summer action between Star Wars and the Indiana Jones movies, and he did like Patriot Games, right? He did those kinds of films. We just don't have that same group of films anymore.
I think Marvel was kind of the death knell for those kind of films because they came in with these superheroes. It isn't just an average guy who is able to make a difference. They have to be somebody with like a secret power, or so they've been wronged by some scientist somewhere or whatever it might be. But now those took over, and then we lost that whole swath of the average Joe just fighting back to try and save whomever based on what he's able to divine,
Right.
It's weird. But what will be a big, interesting question mark is what will qualify as best stunt performance in the Oscars. Now, it's about a year or so away when they're going to judge these. But will they make films just to win that award? Will they have some kind of Burning Man that is the sign of, oh, this is the ultimate stunt that you can do? How will they deal with that? And I don't know what their ground rules will be.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Yeah, I was trying to think about that also. How do you, because you can always tell in a movie when there are good stunts because people are flying off a mountain, or I don't think it's going to be difficult to identify roles that have good stunts to it because somebody's doing something crazy. But in the world of AI and CGI, I think sometimes we take some of these things for granted. So like, is somebody actually jumping off of that mountain or jumping off that building, or is it just kind of on a green screen in a studio? But the other thing too is the way they shoot these things is they're finding actors that have similar character traits to the people they're doubling for. So, how can you tell, really? I guess you can tell, but it's just, how do you stand out? You're going to have these people coming in and winning Oscars who, like, I guess it's no different than costume design or something. It's this person whose face you'll never recognize because they're there, but it's almost, maybe that's what we have to think it like.
Yeah.
It is like best set design. It is like best costume design, a stunt, right? You're there.
It's like Hal Needham, who had all those Burt Reynolds films, where he was the one who decided this is how the car crash is going to go. Here's where we're going to jump the gully or whatever it might be. And he was real good at kind of choreographing all of that. The other thing that we're seeing now is, like Tom Cruise, actors want to do their own stunts so that they look like they're this real superhero. In the new Thunderbolts film, Florence Pugh does a lot of her stunts, and you can see where she's like rolling and running and whatever. And when it ends up, it's her face. It's not like they've had the back of somebody's head and then she turns around in another shot and there she is. It's Florence Pugh doing all of the work. So, who knows what the next phase of this will be?
Is there a concern that somebody like a Tom Cruise could end up winning a stunt performance Oscar, and it's actually taking away from somebody where, like, think of it this way, right? Somebody nominates Tom Cruise because it's like, wow, Tom Cruise, who's an actor, rose above and beyond to do his own stunt. Meanwhile, here's somebody that just normally gets like thrown off of motorcycles and falls off of helicopters and has broken bones and things like that and does it for a living. are you taking away someone else's glory because you're maybe just as an actor going above and beyond? At what point do you draw that line? And it would be kind of funny if you backed into an Oscar that way. Like, you never win one. You're in, tons of films throughout your career, and you finally win one for a stunt performance.
Could you imagine, though, the people who are stunt people,
right,
who say, oh, God, he's going to do it again. Oh, we got to put up with this, and I would be freaked as a producer if I'm putting the star at risk just because they want to be able to look like they're superhuman. I don't know that I'd be calling in the stuntman just for grabbing a hot beverage.
Yeah. I almost wonder if you would have to put in some sort of qualifier, like to qualify for this role, you can only appear on screen in a stunt role, right? Like you eliminate, like, because then you could say, well, Tom Cruise should have actually been nominated for Best Actor because it's the total package. You're acting, you're doing this great performance, plus you're doing your stunts. So we're going to give that to you as an actor, but as a stunt person, you appear in, less than 10% of the film, right? You're in 5 minutes.
If he gets his name in with the stunt coordination team, that's who they'll give it to, is who creates the stunt. And I think those kind of actors will say, oh, well, I did some too, and I kind of created this, so put me in on that list. And that's how they'll get on the list. But I do think it's like in the music business where you'll have Dolly Parton is going to be singing a gospel song now, and she's nominated for Best Gospel Song. You think, well, wait a minute here. She's not singing gospel all the time, but it kind of tweaks the voters a bit where they go, yeah, we should give it to Dolly because we like her and we know who she is, and she's not going to be a bad choice. So I think that's what that'll be. I think that they'll look at that and they'll say, okay, Tom's got to get his name on the list, and he's got to be able to talk to his stunt people to let them sign off on it. And then he gets on the list, and then he has to go up against some guy that you've never heard of before. And I bet he'll win one that way. I bet they'll give it to him.
Here's another question. We didn't talk about this, but as far as action movies go this year, there is another one, and I don't know how I feel about it. And it's the latest reboot of Superman. And I don't know. I've seen the trailers on this, and I've always loved, I love the Christopher Reeve early Superman, like Superman 1 and 2. They kind of got cheesy after that, but I've never been a huge superhero person, but I've always liked the Superman movies, Spider-Man to a degree, the Batman movies I'm usually into, but I kind of draw my line there. I'm not feeling very excited about this one.
It's bad when the dog gets more applause. And in the trailers for that, you see the dog come out and, oh my God, it's the dog. You don't even know who's the guy playing that? You're not really sure. It's David Corenswet, in case you didn't know. He was in a miniseries about Hollywood that was on TV. But for the most part, he's a newcomer as far as we're concerned. And I think they do that same thing that Batman does way too often, which is go back to the beginning and try and show us those things that I don't care anymore. I don't care about him working at Daily Planet and have people not recognizing that he's Superman. I don't care.
Does he have a podcast?
Yeah, that's what's going to happen is that people are going to go, yeah, it's Superman sitting over there. Go over to the third desk. He's sitting there, and you can ask him whatever you want.
Right.
But that's what they need to have, is a different kind of attitude instead of building this up into this grand thing. Now, this could all be in the contracts that they have with these comic books. They could say, you can't do this, you can't do that. We don't want him being drunk and disorderly. There's got to be some kind of reason for what we're doing, and he's always got to look good at the end.
I think where I'm really going to struggle with this too is we have Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, and to me, I need her to do this while in character as Mrs. Maisel.
She needs to be feisty.
Yes.
Yeah, and I hope she is. But
yeah,
if they came to you and they said, "Okay, Terry, we want you to be in our next superhero film, and you're going to be who would that be?
Who would it be?
Yeah, who would you want to be in a superhero film? Because I think all of the superheroes are stiffs.
I don't know. I would be an umpire. I'd be the superhero umpire who doesn't make a call wrong and doesn't get yelled at by coaches.
It's interesting because Wendell Pierce, who is on the TV show Elspeth, if you happen to watch that, he's a big Broadway actor, was nominated for Death of a Salesman, but he is in Superman as the editor of the paper. He's also in Thunderbolts as one of the congressmen, senators, whatever, who are interviewing Julia Louis-Dreyfus. So he's got this kind of cherry-picking career where he's able to do all these kind of oddball things, and it's maybe a week's worth at best, you know?
Yeah. I think, kind of as we wrap up here, one of the biggest questions in action movies is where will the franchise, the 007 franchise, go? Because that's one that after Daniel Craig left, that film that came out, when did it even come out? It's been several years now.
It's been a while.
2021. It got delayed by COVID. It was done and ready to come out, and then they had to push it back until people get back into theaters. But the character, obviously, they killed off the character. Spoiler alert, but it's been how many years now, so I'm not feeling guilty about that. But we know, with 007, they've always just kind of replaced the actors. I think the one thing that I've always liked about it is they kept some level of continuity where they went from, Sean Connery to George Lazenby, back to Connery, then to Roger Moore, and a lot of the other characters kind of kept going along. They really didn't do a true reboot in a sense until they did it with Daniel Craig, where they gave him a little bit more of an origin story, sort of. I'll be curious to see what they do with the role now. Now that Amazon has kind of taken over it and the original producers are stepping away.
I think it depends on how much money they spend on it. If they're willing to throw some money at this, it'll keep the quality.
Right.
They need to pick an actor who is of a certain level. They can't just pick an unknown and say, oh, we're creating our own James Bond. Because if you look at all of those actors have had a profile before, except for Lazenby, before they became James Bond. And I think that showed them right there. We can't pick an unknown. We've got to pick somebody with a profile to make it. And so they're going to need somebody. They've been battering on Brown names like Idris Elba, anybody who seems to be Henry Golding was another one. Anybody who has a hit film is suddenly James Bond potential.
Right. And if you're a British actor who's all of a sudden doing something hot, you're the next James Bond.
Yeah. And I don't know that okay. You have to be of a certain age too. You can't be too old if they want to try and get 5 films out of you.
Right.
We'll see what happens. But watch the who's hitting big at any given point, and they're suddenly the new James Bond.
Right. I think the big question at this point is just like when will something get announced? Because we know that the series is going to continue. I mean, they do at the end of the credits, they did say James Bond will return. So we knew that they would never end it. I mean, I guess I thought there was a possibility that they could just say, you know what, we're going to clean things up and end it. But I do wonder, are they going to just they'll have to do some sort of full reboot? Do they move into a world where they say, you know what, 007 represents, that's the agent number. James Bond is dead, but we're going to give it to somebody else. Now it's like Bill Smith 007, right? So could it go down that route? And then the other thing, which I don't know if I like this idea or not, but it's crossed my mind with Amazon, instead of going down the route of movies, do they turn it into like an Amazon original series where maybe they rehash the books, the Ian Fleming books, and kind of redo them in a modern world where each season, you do like a 6-episode season for Goldfinger. I don't know.
Or does he have to deliver packages for Amazon? So there's somebody at the door and it's James Bond. Okay, here's your package.
Yeah, all of a sudden this like Union Jack parachute opens up and he lands with a brown box with that smile on the side, right? Oh,
I think that's the way to go. Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Well, thank you again for listening, and we'll be back again next week with another episode of Streamed and Screened.